3, 2, 1, go.
You're listening to The Kyle Chambers Show.
And welcome to the Kyle Chambers Show. My name is Kyle Chambers, and I'm here today with Mr. Adam Oldfield. Adam Oldfield is the president of Vacu-Man Furnace and Duct Cleaning, which is based in Burlington. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Kyle. A real pleasure.
How did Vacu-Man get its start?
Wow, great question. Well, it began with my father, and we're going back in the 70s, late 70s, and what happened was he was working in the oil industry, and back then it was all oil in homes. I know I say that as everyone cringes under climate change and otherwise, but he was also just as much sick of it, and there was a growing concern of, soot from the oil furnaces getting into air ducts. So in around 1979, I was still a wee baby, barely walking, probably crawling through air ducts, but he started a company called Vacu-Man Furnace and Duct Cleaning. So it's a big vacuum truck. It was a classic old 70s Chevy. And he began the process of trying to convince people to clean their furnace and air duct systems. So 45 years later, I grew up in the business. Dad put me through school and obviously paid for life for us, but ended up around 2019. My dad was thinking about retiring. He always ran it out of the house in Burlington, and he finally said, I'm exhausted. It was too old to keep going and too young to retire. So I stepped in as an entrepreneur myself with a history of running companies. And I grew up through school doing this job. I think I started when child labor was still legal. I could be wrong, but anyway, I just remember waking up as a young child and it was like, oh, I get to play with my Star Wars, or Dad needs me for work. Dad's making me go to work. So anyway, hopefully this doesn't bring on social services or anything like that. He's an old man, so everyone just leave him alone, okay? Come on. Anyway, so here I am today, and my wife, Michelle Oldfield, and we actually operate the business, and we took it over in 2019, and we've been growing it ever since.
What common problems do you find in air ducts in Burlington?
Depending on the homes, it ranges. So in the older homes, some of the classic buildings and developments that have been around since the 1920s even, or even 1800s, it's been around quite a while, that city. So it depends on the setup. So in the older part near Lakeshore, a lot of the homes that are developed have a migration. As I mentioned, they went from coal to oil to forced air, or they've now migrated to like a heat pump. So a lot of it is just debris, time, dust. A lot of the construction that's actually been happening in Burlington has been creating a lot of extra chemicals, if I'll call it, inside the air ducts. And most recently is, of course, the flooding. In 2024, there was a lot of rain, and when flooding happens, it can end up in the air duct system. So we've even been in positions in the last couple of weeks where we've gone in and drilled holes to drain the water out of the air duct system. There was that much water that got stuck inside. So it's a combination of several things. I found a lot of interesting things inside air duct systems. I remember we found a bag of cannabis. I think it has been in there since the 80s. So I think it was actually the process of growing a new bud and inside the air duct system. So I found all sorts of crazy items over my years.
Do you find the heat affects the air duct systems as well, and how your company can clean it?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is with the moisture and as I mentioned, the humidity. When you're running your air conditioning unit, what can happen is that if it's not cleaned, and you don't think about it because you can't see it, so a lot of times you're not paying attention to it, what happens is your air conditioner will run harder because it needs more energy, to run. So the way to give a simplistic understanding is your furnace turns on, the blower fan spins, which kind of like a fan. If you put a fan on in front of you, that's the fan in the furnace. It then draws air from the house. So it's pulling air from within the house into the system. And if you've got a central air system for that matter, it then removes the humidity and takes the moisture out. Well, if there's dirt to start with, or it hasn't been cleaned in 3 to 5 years, what happens is the blower fan has to work harder. And, kind of like imagine getting a fan and putting a lot of weight on it. The fan has to spin harder and use more electricity. So from that end of things, you're going to save a lot of energy from that side, where you're looking at, especially with energy bills as they are. And then when it's hot and cold, like it is right now, it's like super humid, wet weather changes constantly. What you're finding is hot and cold, it contracts and expands. So it's going to sweat. So what's going to happen is, depending on how your house is set up, it will start to create a lot of condensation. Now, inside the air duct system is an oil base, which means that as it sweats, it just gets a little moisture. What will happen is it will just kind of evaporate as the furnace is on or as the fan's running. And I really encourage people, don't turn it on and off. Leave the fan always on, because that airflow allows the moisture in your air ducts to be able to dry out. Otherwise, what happens is, over time, the oil base that protects it ends up getting worn, and then that's when the moisture continues. Hence, you can get rust. Rust then can relate to mold. But it's very, very minimal that there's a lot of, I'm going to say, mold in air duct systems.
Do you find it's different dealing with somebody's personal home as opposed to a commercial air duct system?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Because first of all, most home systems are in the basement. Furnace systems, heat pumps, otherwise, they're all in the basement. So the air is forcing upward. Whereas in a commercial unit, it's a rooftop HVAC, and it drops and then goes across the ceiling and drops down on the patrons and the people within the office. So cleaning them have two different processes. So we have different size trucks, and depending on how big your home is, most homes are around 2,000, between 1,500, 2,000 square feet. If you're getting into the 4,000, hell, I've done a 25,000 square foot house. And let me tell you, it's crazy, but yes, you need multiple furnaces at that point. You need a bigger truck. So I've got two trucks for the standard home, 2,000. And then I've got the bigger, like the commercial units, and as well as bigger homes. And that's a big box truck. So it's called CFM. So it's a matter of volume of air that's being sucked in by the vacuum. And it's not suction, it's vacuum. So what that means is, when we put it in, the vacuum then needs to be agitated. So we use an air pressure to blow it, as it's agitated, the dust is in the air, the vacuum sucks the dirt and debris into it. So you need a bigger vacuum to do a commercial unit versus a residential.
How has the community in Burlington reacted to your business over the years?
I think fairly good. I mean, my dad has, been very, very successful. I mean, when you think, not many people think duct cleaning. Let me tell you, it's kind of like, what do I got to think about today? Duct cleaning is not one of those top thoughts. But in Burlington, a lot of people I know have, when they do think of the name, my father has done a great job as a reputation, quality, knowing how it works, what to do better. So, we've worked with all the restoration companies. My father has worked with the fire department, as we also clean dryer vents in addition to the furnace and air ducts. So we work with fire department, because that's another thing, clogged dryer lint. It's really looking, you're leaning towards a house fire. It's actually 30% of the reasons house fires occur is you get a lint buildup, and it's just like, it's like kindling. The minute a dry spark or whatever hits it, it lights up like a Christmas tree, and boom, you got a house fire.
You're someone who's a big advocate for AI. Do you think AI is going to be a component in your business?
Absolutely. In fact, I've incorporated it in the last 2.5 years. I use it every day. My crew incorporates it in different capacities. So as an example, AI, and there's several components, AI and augmented reality. When we look at a furnace, there's different types and styles. So it could be a Carrier, could be a Lennox, could be all sorts of different types. What I've done is I've created a 3D model that uses augmented reality, not only for the customer to see, but also for the staff. So when they're looking at it, you don't know what's inside the system. Where's the coil? Where's the blower fan? Where's the heat exchange? So we use augmented reality, incorporating through a database of several furnaces. So when the guys hold up a camera, it actually shows visually what it looks like inside the furnace system. So that's one component that we've incorporated. And then the customer can see as well. So versus me getting tin snips and a screwdriver, and I'm ripping it open going, look inside. Now we're giving them a visual representation of it using a smartphone. We've incorporated AI a lot in our customer service now. So just recently, we've integrated a translation system. So I have different ethnic backgrounds that work in cultures in my company. So we just tested this the last couple of weeks, and it's got even better. So when we're talking to someone that maybe English isn't their native language, it actually will translate into English or whatever their language is. So I have one customer service that's Filipino. They're speaking Filipino translated into the language of the person calling. So if they're speaking Hindi or they're speaking Mandarin, they can speak in their natural language. And it sounds like a conversation, yet it's using AI to convert it accordingly. So I use several systems. So it's called Intercom is one of the systems I use. I use HeyGen. A lot of my marketing as well is all AI. So if anyone follows us on Facebook, Instagram, if you see me doing the old check us out on, that's all AI. I don't have time to do videos every week. So that's all AI. All of our marketing is developed in a capacity of artificial intelligence.
What I think is really cool, Burlington is a very diverse community, a lot of different backgrounds, so that you're able to have that transfer from different languages is really important for customers, and it makes it easier for the customer to be satisfied with your service in the long term.
It is a great system. It has definitely improved our communication. Its falter is it's not 100% perfect yet. So there's a lot of time delays waiting for what's being said to translate and then waiting for them to say what they want to say back. So we're getting there. I mean, in a matter of less than 2 years of its development, we've seen it really amplified.
That's great. Thank you so much for doing the show today.
Yeah, of course. Anytime, Kyle. If you need anything else or you're excited about duct cleaning, I'm your guy. I'll help you answer those questions.